Genghis Khan. You know the name. He built the biggest land empire in history. We're taught he was this military genius who redrew the entire map. But that's only half the story. History books love to talk about the glory and the battles. But what they don't tell you is what happened after the screaming stopped. For literally millions of women, from Persia to China to Kievan Ruses, Genghis Khan's name didn't mean conqueror. It meant the start of an absolute nightmare. It was a terrifying new reality where their lives, their bodies, and their futures were stolen from them. Today, we're telling their brutal, untold story, a story of unimaginable loss, insane choices, and the will to survive in the face of total destruction. If you were a guy fighting Genghis Khan, your story was simple. You either won or you died. Game over. But for the women who survived the first attack, their nightmare was just getting started. Their fate wasn't a quick death. It was a long, terrifying journey into the heart of the very empire that had just destroyed their world. So, what actually happened to these women? We're about to show you the insane reality of being a prize of war in the Mongol Empire, and you will not believe how crazy it gets. Okay, so to get what happened to the women, you need to see how insane the Mongol army was. This wasn't just some random mob. It was the most sophisticated and terrifying army on Earth, built on speed, discipline, and pure psychological warfare. When the Mongols rolled up to your city, they gave you one choice. One, they'd send guys to demand your surrender. If you bowed down, paid a tax, and gave them soldiers, your city was spared. You were just part of the empire now. It was simple. Surrender or be completely annihilated. And a lot of cities, hearing the crazy rumors about the Mongols, just opened their gates. But for the ones who resisted, the price was designed to be so horrible, no one else would ever dare to defy the Khan. And if you chose to fight, get ready for the most terrifying siege imaginable. These guys used giant trebuchets, massive crossbows, even gunpowder to tear down the strongest walls. It was crazy, but their most horrific tactic was something called the Karash. They would grab prisoners from other towns, local guys, farmers, and force them to be human shields. I'm not kidding. They made people fill moats with their own bodies and push siege engines, forcing defenders to kill their own countrymen. It was pure psychological terror. And once the walls came down, that's when the real horror started. For cities that fought back, the slaughter was insane. One historian claimed they killed over 700,000 people in the city of Merv. Whether that number is real or not, the message was clear. We will wipe you off the map. Men and any boys who might be a future threat were usually executed on the spot. After one battle, Genghis Khan supposedly ordered every male taller than a wagon's linchpin to be killed, just to make sure no one was left for revenge. And right there, in that storm of terror, is where the women's story began. While the men were being killed, women and children were rounded up. They were no longer people. They were treasure, the spoils of war. Their world was over, and a new one, defined by the total power of their captors, was about to begin. In the chaos after a city fell, it was time to hand out the loot. And the women? They were treated just like gold or silver. This was a completely organized system. The most beautiful women and those from royal families went straight to Genghis Khan and his top guys. Everyone else was given to the soldiers as a reward for their service. A reward. For a normal woman, the future was terrifying. Many were forced to be slaves for life. The Mongol Empire needed a massive workforce, so captured women were put to work cooking, cleaning, and taking care of animals for the same warriors who just destroyed their homes. It was non-stop work with zero freedom. Other women with skills like weaving were sent to labor camps across the empire, their talents now belonging to their conquerors. And on top of that, sexual assault was basically a guarantee. For a soldier, taking a woman was seen as his right as a victor. It was so unbelievably horrible that many women reportedly chose to end their own lives rather than face it. The Mongols had this twisted belief that men who couldn't protect their women didn't deserve to live, which they used to justify turning these women into symbols of their people's defeat. This was also a cold, calculated empire-building strategy. The mass rape of conquered women was meant to terrorize people into never fighting back, and it worked. Today, scientists have found that a giant percentage of men in Asia are related to Genghis Khan's family. That is the genetic footprint of this insane conquest. The system was a clear pyramid. A regular soldier might get 1 or 2 women. An officer got more. A general or a member of the Khan's family could be gifted hundreds, creating huge households built on captured lives. These women were stripped of their names, their pasts, everything. Their only purpose was to serve and have children for a new master. For tens of thousands of women, this was their grim new reality. But, and this is a huge but, not every captured woman had the same fate. If you were royalty before you were captured, your story could be completely different. If you were a princess or a queen, you weren't just a slave, you were a political tool. The Mongols would marry these royal women to lock down control over a new territory. They basically became hostage wives, living symbols that their people had been defeated. On the surface, their lives were insane. They lived in these incredible tents, wearing silk, with servants. But it was all a golden cage. They had zero freedom and were watched 24/7. Still, their status as wives gave them a tiny bit of power. Some of these women were super smart and could actually influence their new Mongol husbands, subtly trying to make life better for their old people. It was an insane balancing act. And at the very top of everything was Genghis Khan's personal harem. The guy had 4 main wives, but some historians say he had thousands of other women. He literally had a living museum of his conquests. After every victory, the most beautiful women would be lined up, and he would take his pick. He'd gift the others to his sons and generals. The women he chose were treated like valuable assets. They got the best food, the best clothes, and were even taught to play music for the court. A diplomat who visited was shocked to see captured women at feasts, treated more like guests than prisoners. But this good treatment was paper-thin. Their lives were not their own. Being unfaithful was a death sentence. There's this crazy story where a top general was supposed to bring a princess to the Khan. To protect her, he kept her in his own camp for 3 nights. When Genghis Khan found out, he was going to execute him for it. The only thing that saved the general was the princess bravely swearing that he was just protecting her for the Khan. This shows you how insane the pressure was for everyone. And once the Khan died, the fate of these women was grim. Their protector was gone, and most were just thrown away, forgotten by the empire. But to understand Genghis Khan's mindset, you have to know what happened to his own wife, Borte. Early in their marriage, she was kidnapped by a rival tribe, revenge for his father stealing his mother years before. For 8 months, Borte was a captive, forced to be the wife of another warrior. The young Genghis Khan was destroyed. He went on an all-out mission to get her back, and the daring rescue made him a legend. But she returned pregnant. She gave birth to their first son, Jochi, and nobody ever knew for sure if the baby was his. This created massive drama in his family forever, and even affected who would inherit his empire. And here is the craziest paradox. This whole trauma made him create a law, the Yasa, that made kidnapping women a death penalty offense for Mongols. But he turned around and did that exact same thing to every single one of his enemies. He fiercely protected his own women while making the capture of foreign women his #1 military strategy. If you want to see how much of a strategy this all was, just look at how the Mongols treated their own women. The difference is unbelievable. While conquered women were being enslaved, Mongol-born women had insane amounts of freedom compared to places like Europe or China at the time. Mongol women were not hidden away. They were essential partners. They managed the camps, herded the animals, milked them, and made all the essential food. They were the absolute backbone of their society. And get this, they could own and inherit property. In a world where women were often treated like property, Mongol women could own it. They were powerful shamans and respected advisors. The wives of the Khans weren't quiet. They were political players whose opinions mattered. Just look at his wife, Borte. After she was rescued, she became the Grand Empress. She wasn't just a wife. She was a legit powerhouse. She ran her own court and her own territory. When Genghis was off conquering the world, she was helping run the empire back home. He respected her advice so much that she influenced some of his biggest decisions. This contrast is everything. The brutal treatment of captured women wasn't because the Mongols had some barbaric view of women. It was a deliberate, calculated strategy of war. They knew what it meant for women to have a voice and power. They gave those rights to their own women, and they systematically ripped those same rights away from the women of their enemies to break their societies. It was one set of rules for them, and another for everyone else. So with all this horror, you'd think every captured woman was just a helpless victim, right? Wrong. Some of these women were absolute geniuses who flipped the script and grabbed insane amounts of power for themselves. The wildest moments happened after a Khan died. It could take years to elect a new one, and in that power vacuum, the Khan's widows, even the ones who started as captives, could take over. The number one example is Turagene Khatun. She was originally a captive from a defeated tribe, given as a wife to Genghis Khan's son and heir, ou've. But when ou've died in 1241, she made her move. This captive wife outplayed everyone and had herself declared regent of the entire Mongol Empire. For 5 years, a former prisoner was the most powerful woman on earth. She ruled with an iron fist, fired her husband's guys, and hired her own people. And get this, her most trusted advisor was another captive woman. European diplomats wrote home completely shocked about this female-led government running the world's biggest empire. A woman who was once a prize of war was now deciding the fate of nations. Then there was Sorgaktani Beki, a captive Christian princess who was one of the smartest political minds of the century. She was married to Genghis Khan's youngest son, Tolui. She never ruled as regent, but she was so good at politics that she brilliantly guided her sons through all the deadly drama of the Mongol court. Her influence was so huge that all 4 of her sons would become great Khans. A captive literally shaped the next generation of the empire's rulers. It's unbelievable. These stories, while super rare, prove that the Mongol system, even though it was brutal, respected one thing: results. If you were smart, tough, and delivered, you could win, even if you started as a captive. And the final legacy of these captured women is written in our DNA. The Mongol policy of taking women from all over the world created the biggest mixing of people in history. That genetic footprint is the living proof of this insane story. So the story of women under Genghis Khan is just full of insane contrasts. On one hand, you have mass slavery and unimaginable horror. On the other, you have a few women who seized ultimate power. It's a legal code that commanded the death penalty for kidnapping Mongol women while turning that very act into a weapon of war against everyone else. It's a story of golden cages and women who turned their captivity into a platform for changing the world. But we have to be real. For the vast majority, the reality was one of pure terror, loss, and slavery. They were seen as objects, another resource to be used. Their bodies were used to reward soldiers, terrorize enemies, and populate an empire. Most of their names and their stories are completely lost to history. But to see them only as victims is to miss the whole picture. In their fight to survive and in the unbelievable success stories of the few who clawed their way to the top, we see the true complicated nature of the human spirit. Their fate is a chilling look at the real human cost of building an empire, and a dark, necessary chapter in the epic story of the Mongol world. If you can't believe what you just heard, smash that like button and subscribe right now. We love telling the stories that are often left out of the history books. Let us know in the comments below. What other insane part of the Mongol Empire should we investigate next?